Cyber Seminar Transcript. Date, January 12, 2017. Series, Veterans Informatics and Computing Infrastructure. Session, What Vinci Users Need to Know. Presenter, Hamid Sayudian. This is an unedited transcript of this session. As such, it may contain omissions or errors due to sound quality or misinterpretation. For clarification or verification of any points in the transcript, please refer to the audio version posted at www.hsrd.research.va.gov/cyberseminars/catalog-archive.cfm. Hamid Sayudian, welcome to I guess what will be the first of our Vinci Cyber Seminars for 2017. I apologize for the extra noise, somebody speaking here, sharing the room with somebody else here, and he is going to be off his call real quick. In the meantime, I will try to speak as loud as I can to make sure everyone can hear me, so let us go ahead and get started. Today's topic is what Vinci users need to know. Normally it is Tim Promptman PH that does these cyber seminars and all cyber seminars for Vinci for us. But he is on vacation this week, so I am sort of subbing for him. Let us get started. The agenda today: we will begin by doing a quick overview of Vinci and what Vinci is and what it offers, and then from there we will transition into a set of various issues that we have seen over time, questions from our users or pitfalls, sort of help desk tickets or tips for new users. Some of the questions that come to our staff from users that indicates the possible misunderstanding of some of the features or services of Vinci. So we will try to cover as many of those as we can today to help you, hopefully get a better understanding of how to take advantage of everything that Vinci offers. Vinci is an HSR&D resource center primarily set up as a project to serve VA's research community. We do at the same time host a number of operations, projects, want to take advantage of some of the features that Vinci offers. Vinci is under OINT and the BISL team, the CDW team. As I mentioned, Vinci is primarily for research, it is not for active patient care. So if you are planning on doing some work that directly relates to active patient care that is not where you want to be. Vinci started some 8 or 9 years ago, and it has seen tremendous growth over time, as with some of the other successful IT projects in the VA. We started with only serving a handful of projects 8 years ago, and now we have grown to this past year we had well over 400 new projects that were served by Vinci, and overall close to 1,000 projects new and old that Vinci served data to. Then we are hosting well over 2,000 projects now in Vinci and thousands of users. So the environment keeps growing. Of course, as with many other IT projects, that budget does not really always keep up with the demand, but we are finding different ways to operate more efficiently and still are managing to provide a good quality service to our users. Some of the things that Vinci offers: we do have a website known Vinci Central that offers a lot of features, and I will cover some of those. We do have the Vinci Workspace, which essentially is a cloud-like environment where you are able to do all your research work and data analysis work. In that environment, we offer a number of different applications that you can use to do your work, access data, network with your data. Along with that, of course, the data Vinci offers the most comprehensive datasets available in the VA collection of all the various datasets that are commonly requested and used by VA researchers. Along with that, we offer services on top of that whole environment and the data to enable users to take advantage of the data and perform work they need to do. Talking a little bit more about the Vinci services, one of the services that Vinci offers is the Vinci Concierge service. That includes education and training of the users. We do data needs assessment to help you evaluate the feasibility of the project that you are considering, or to get some preliminary data to get you started with your project, patient counts, and so forth. The overall mission of the services team and the concierge team is to help researchers get started, taking advantage of the data, get timely answers to the common questions that they may have. We have online services. We also have staff that answer calls, a wide help desk, and also staff that if you have a need to speak to someone one-on-one can contact you and guide you through the various processes that you may have questions on. Some of the other services that Vinci provides, of course, the data provisioning being at the top of that, as I mentioned. Hundreds of new projects each year and hundreds more that are being served data to every year, new and old projects. So data services, providing data and provisioning data for research projects, is one of the main services that Vinci provides. In addition to that, a lot of various types of technical support to help you take advantage of the environment, use the resources available in Vinci. I briefly mentioned the study feasibility assessment, so if you have a research idea in mind and you would like to evaluate its feasibility before you get started with the IRB process and so forth, you come to Vinci. We have staff here to help you look at the numbers, look at the counts to make sure you have the data sets that you would need to perform your project. Clinical trial recruitment is another service that Vinci provides. These are projects where they may need to work with a set of patients, possibly send out questionnaires or surveys, and they may need a patient list and patient addresses, so we do provide that service. If you come in with your requirements, we will use those requirements to come up with a core work set, provide you with the names and the addresses, and so forth to enable you to continue with your project. Annotation and chart review: there is a dedicated team that works on providing those services to the research user. Natural language processing: again, there is a team that provides NLB support if you have a need to study and then mine data from text information, clinical notes, and so forth. We have a team that provides that service and can work with you, basically look at the data and extract concepts from notes. Then on top of that, we have the analytics and data services staff in the SAS team and other areas that can work with you to help you take advantage of some of the applications and analytical tools available in Vinci. Looking at the Vinci Central, that is the primary website for Vinci, and it has a lot of various features. One of the more useful features in Vinci Central is the page that we call My Vinci Dashboard. If you have a project in Vinci and you would like to be able to take a look at all the different features and files, databases, and so on that you have available to you in Vinci and you are working with, and you want to go to a single place and be able to get a listing of all that and be able to see information about all the different projects that you may have in Vinci, this is the page that you go to. You will be able to see a listing of all your databases, database size. The same with the file shares. If you have VMs or if you have a collaboration site, you would be able to look at all your active and past DART requests. If you have made any online requests to Vinci for services or new features, you would be able to see a history of those and a status of where that request is, and be able to also make new requests if you have a need to online. You would be able to see all your projects. You would be able to see all the active directory groups that you are a member of, which essentially translates into all of the various permissions that you would have to different projects and data. That would be a good page to remember, Vinci Dashboard, if you want all of that information. Some more information about Vinci Central: there is a lot of helpful information. If you need step-by-step procedures for how to go about getting your IRB research study started, or if you have a prepped research study that you want to start working and you want to know how to go about that, there are documents there that can help you get started. We also have a number of very useful user guides to help you get started with various areas, data access, SAS, and so forth in Vinci that will help you basically get a head start into those various areas in Vinci and be able to get a better understanding of where to go and how to get started. We also have a number of helpful videos and an archive of all the presentations that we have done over time and links to other sites for various guides to help you get started. I talked about the Vinci workspace, which is essentially a cloud-like environment, basically a remote environment that you log into and take advantage of all the different features in Vinci and all the different services and applications. There are a number of different ways that you can advantage of that environment. We have the standard workspace and also the development workspace, with that workspace being a shared environment where you would be able to access a number of different applications. At the same time, have access to all the data that has been made available to you in Vinci and all the file shares and data that you have stored in Vinci and be able to work with all of that. Then we have the development workspace, which is sort of a dedicated environment that gets configured for your use or other shared environment with your other project team members. These development workspaces are primarily intended for those users who want to go in and do some custom development work, or they may have applications that they want to bring in and use in Vinci that are not already part of the standard workspace environment. You can make a special request for those development environments and those would get configured for your use. The standard workspace, there is a number of different ways to get into that. One of the primary ways is going through the website basically that makes all the remote applications available to you. That should always be your first choice of using an application. In that mode, when you start an application, it starts as a remote app, but it looks exactly as if the application was running on your desktop, except it is running remotely in the Vinci environment. So it is contained within its own window and appears as just any other local application. In that mode, you would normally get the best performance if you are only going through one level of remote desktop session. We also offer the full standard workspace, which is basically logging into a desktop, and from there you would be able to launch various applications, which again run as a remote application within that standard workspace desktop environment. In that mode, you would be going through two levels of remote desktop, which still performs well, but depending on the type of connection that you have on the network latencies that you may be experiencing, based on your location and other factors, you may see a bit of a delay basically when you move your mouse around or your keyboard. I will talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of those a little bit later. Those are a few different modes, and for the standard workspace desktop we also offer the multi-monitor mode, which allows you to take advantage if you have more than one monitor and you want to spread out your workspace and be able to access multiple applications and work with those simultaneously. You will be able to take advantage of that. More issues about the workspace: the file storage. We do have the O and P drives that over the past year we have done a lot of work in trying to make that file share environment more efficient using a redundant cluster and much better distributed file system. All those factors have contributed greatly to the level of performance that we are able to offer from the file shares. Basically much better speed and faster access of accessing the files and writing files and so forth. If you are a research project user, you would see your projects under your P folder, P drive, as you work in the Vinci environment. For operations users, you would see your project under the old drive. And if you are like some of the users that we have in Vinci involved in both operations and projects, you would be able to see both of those project folders, or as many of the project folders as you are a part of at the same time, and be able to work with those. Databases is where you normally store your data, and if you are a research user and request data through the Dart process, that is where your data is going to be provisioned for you. Databases are on the various SQL Server databases that Vinci has. That is a general distinction to be made here between the file shares and databases. Some users get those two mixed up and they may start looking at their P drive and their project folder and they come back and ask, where is my data? Just for those of you who are not familiar with Vinci, keep in mind the database is where you want to go to see your data. Along with that, you also get an H drive. Each user gets an H drive, and that is basically your personal drive. It is a bit smaller in size than the project folder, so you normally do not want to store any data on your H drive, but if you have code or other types of files that you want to store documents and so forth, that would be a good place to store that type of data. I talked about the various ways getting into Vinci workspace, development workspace, and over time in the last few months, we have upgraded many of those environments and now using new servers and more servers to be able to serve those environments. If you do have some links from the past that you bookmarked and now you are not able to open those, just keep in mind that the best place to go back to is Vinci Central and get started with the Launch Workspace link on the homepage, and that will provide you with the correct and updated links to get into the Vinci environment. Some other considerations and common issues that we see from the users. As many of you are accustomed to now to work with the VA environment, you have to, especially if you are working remote, you will be coming in through CAG or the Citrix Access Gateway or the VPN environment. A common misconception is from a lot of the users, they connect through CAG or VPN and at that point, they start wondering, where is Vinci? How come I am not logged into Vinci? Just keep in mind that connecting through CAG or VPN, that just gets you connected to the VA network. From there you still need to go through the Vinci Central page using the links to get into the workspace, and then at that point you will be connected to the Vinci environment, and now you are inside the Vinci environment. It is sort of a two-step process that you have to go through. The other issue here to mention is a lot of times CAG and VPN users may be experiencing issues through those environments and they end up calling Vinci. Basically for those issues you have to go through the VA help desk and report those problems to be able to get assistance with those issues. Another issue to keep in mind is Vinci is a secure environment. There is no internet connectivity inside Vinci, so that provides additional security. At the same time, it causes some limitations that you need to be aware of and be prepared to work around. If you have a need to access the internet, outside sites, and bring in information or look up information that you want to use in Vinci, you want to basically have your browser running side by side with your Vinci workspace application. Then if you need to basically copy and paste between the two environments, you can basically put that information in a file, upload it quickly. I will mention upload and download here in a minute. Just be aware of that fact, and if you have any questions as far as how to get around some of the limitations that causes, feel free to contact us. Or as I mentioned before, look at some of the guides on the Vinci Central site. We will provide you a lot of helpful information to work around those issues. Copy and paste, as I mentioned, does not exist, but we do offer the upload/download applications that are very easy to use, browser-based applications, which help you upload small pieces of code or whatever you have quickly and efficiently into the environment. One of the other things that we see from our users often is when they open a Windows Explorer and you are accustomed to double-clicking on a file because of the file association, it opens the proper application. That is something that does not work as well in the Vinci environment, so you basically have to open the application and then access the file because of all the applications being remote and maybe running on different servers. Did I mention the Vinci workspace is a firewalled environment and the upload/download tools, those are going to be your best friends. If you have a need to transfer code or small files back and forth, just keep in mind the download tool is audited. We keep a copy of all the files that you download and audit those to make sure that basically patient data is not improperly downloaded. Just keep that in mind as well. I mentioned the fact that you can log into the Vinci workspace desktop environment and then from there start another remote application. One of the common pitfalls here for users is when they start a second RPP session inside the first one. What happens is that basically the connection bar or the remote desktop connection indicator at the top of the screen, they get overlaid on top of each other. When you close the second window that you are in, basically closes the first one or vice versa, or if you minimize one. To get around that issue, just click on that basically the top bar and move it one way or another a little bit, and that will expose the other session that you are in, the bar for the other session that you are in. Then you will be able to manage those separately. Some of the other considerations as far as logging off from these remote sessions, you want to make sure that you do log off if that is what you intend to do, or exit the application rather than just clicking on the X on the upper right corner of each of the windows. That basically closes a session, but it does not disconnect you, so your session is still there. Realizing what you want to do, whether you want to just close your window or minimize your window or you want to log off, you want to use the proper option. Vinci offers a very thriving Linux environment with a lot of different options and applications and basically ability to connect back to the Windows environment and use your file shares or access databases. If you do have a need to work in the Linux environment that is offered. And the Linux environment is now PIV compliant, so you would be able to basically without using a login and password just use your PIV card to be able to authenticate and access the Linux desktop. That is another thing to keep in mind, and all the features that the Linux environment offers plus all the applications. I mentioned the web page where you can go and access all of the different applications as remote apps. This is that page. You can see a complete list of all the different applications that are offered in this bannered workspace that you can take advantage of. One thing to keep in mind is on the SPSS, due to funding issues, at this point Vinci is unable to upgrade the SPSS. So if you are an SPSS user, you should consider possibly if you can migrate your work to one of the other analytic tools available. Our SAS team is well versed in SAS as well as SPSS. They would be able to help you with that transition if needed. We will be in the next few weeks, we'll do a cyber seminar on basically helping users transition from SPSS to SAS for those of you who are interested. NVivo is another application that at this point is being considered to be phased out. It is not funded to be renewed, so basically same goes for NVivo users for transitioning to another alternative. At the same time, both of those tools are still available in the Vinci workspace, but they are aging and they are not being updated, so just keep that in mind that if you are using those tools at this point, it is unknown how long they will be around. Plans are to keep them around as long as basically the VA standards and guidelines allow us to do that. Just keep those facts in mind. Moving on to SAS and some of the considerations there. SAS continues to be our largest and most popular analytics tool in Vinci, and we have a lot of guides. We do offer the SAS desktop environment as well as the SAS grid. Take a look at all the documents we have on the Vinci Central to get you started. Additional considerations on SAS. One of the things is when you get into this workspace, you want to go to the remote apps folder to get the SAS application started. Also, I mentioned the SAS grid. There are a lot of advantages in using SAS grid in an environment over the standard desktop SAS, much more robust and much better performance. You are able to access, be made available more storage capacity if you need. Again, if you use many of the other SAS features, SAS modules, just keep in mind that they are limited on the desktop version but much more available in the SAS grid environment, more flexibility, more security overall in the SAS grid environment as opposed to the desktop. Both of those options are available in Vinci. SAS Enterprise Miner. For those of you who are SAS users, it offers a lot of great capabilities and relatively easy programming environment. With some of the new features in SAS, you are able to easily include RNR scripts in SAS. Take a look at those features, and as I mentioned, our SAS team is always available to answer your questions and help you get started with SAS grid environment. SAS Enterprise Guide again is a good interface to SAS and makes it much easier to work with SAS or wizard driven and easier to use. Check out our SAS Enterprise Guide if you have not already. Other SAS considerations. I talked about the transition from SPSS to SAS. We do offer that as a service now to help you transition from SPSS to SAS. One of the other common issues that we see with the SAS environment, as I mentioned with the SAS desktop runs on a Windows platform where SAS grid runs on a Linux environment. The connectivity between these environments are all very seamless. You would be able to access your file share SQL Server databases from all those environments, where you might be storing your data in your file share or your Linux environment, so just keep in mind where you are storing your data so you can go back to the proper place to find what you are looking for. Again, SAS team is available to help you optimize your queries. Take advantage of the SAS grid. If you are planning to use SAS and are a long-term SAS user in Vinci, we do recommend taking a good look at the SAS grid environment and taking advantage of the many features that it provides. Moving on to the data and the data provisioning area in Vinci. Some of the common issues that we see, for some of the users, we are not accustomed to working with large data sets. They may come in and request data through Dart and come in and expect data to be delivered to them in an Excel spreadsheet. Of course, as we are saying with many of the projects that we serve data to, the datasets are far too large to fit into Excel spreadsheet. Even if you were able to put all that data in an Excel spreadsheet, you will not be able to work with that data. So just keep in mind that you are working in a SQL Server environment. Most of the time when you are working with data, be prepared to access your data in SQL as opposed to a small file like Excel. Vinci basically, when it comes to data, we serve data, we host the data, but we are not the creators of the data or the data stored, so to speak. If you do have specific issues, as far as access or quality of data and so forth, we still have to refer you to the source of the data. We also have a list of some of the datasets that we offer. In Vinci, of course, all the CDW data plus basically the SAS datasets that any research users are accustomed to using, all of those in SQL Server environment, making it easier for you to combine all those datasets and take advantage of them. Other considerations when it comes to working with data. Our data team is basically with a number of projects that we have. Our services are limited to data provisioning. We do try to help you, give you pointers when it comes to data analysis, but just keep in mind that you do need to have staff, analyst data, and list on your team to be able to work with the data Vinci offers. Data analysis services through the Vinci Services team. If you are interested in that, that is a paid service, so just keep that in mind. But that is available for those of you who do not have access to data analysts to work with you and your team. Other factors here to keep in mind is basically the datasets. As I mentioned, the datasets are very large. You are not working with small tables, often you are working with fact tables that are millions of rows in size. So if you are accustomed to working with small datasets, and have queries that used to work with these smaller datasets, now you are having a hard time making those work with these larger datasets. Just keep in mind that you want to make sure you review your queries properly, check the execution plan, take advantage of the indexes that are available and all the different factors to basically refine and optimize your queries before you run them against these larger datasets. Keeping in mind, if you are running queries that are inefficient, you are impacting other users in Vinci since you are working in a shared environment. Some of the other common questions that we see from users. A lot of times users store data in their databases and start running out of space. One of the first things that we recommend is compressing your tables. That not only saves a lot of space but also improves the efficiency of your queries and the access of the data. ICD-9 and ICD-10 transition from ICD-9 to ICD-10 over the past few years has been an issue for a lot of the research users. Just keep in mind there is no direct translation between ICD-9 and ICD-10. Then some of the other mix-ups that we often see are users sometimes get CPT codes, procedure codes mixed up with ICD codes. Study those different codes and be able to position yourself to be able to take advantage of what they are and what they mean when it comes to using those different codes in respect with the data that you are provided. A few quick Dart considerations. Basically, Vinci is not the entity that approves data access. You have to go through Dart. We do offer a lot of guides, and basically our help desk also can answer questions that you would have when you start going through the Dart process, so take advantage of that. Some of the common things that you want to keep in mind when it comes to Dart: amending your Dart request. If you are adding new participants or if you have team members that leave the project or the VA, you want to amend your Dart request to be able to make those changes. If you are asking for new datasets or you want to move data to outside of Vinci, those are occasions when you want to go to Dart and make those amendments and be able to get proper approval for those changes on your project. Other quick considerations: as far as Vinci projects the different types of projects that we serve in Vinci, your project can entirely live in Vinci, your data, all your files and everything. Or if you have a need to download data, again, you can go through the Dart process and select the proper type of project that would allow you to download data. If you have a need to host the data in your local data center, local servers, and take advantage of specific application, you may have a need to do that, so just going through the proper process. Always keep in mind that it is always better to work with the data, much more efficient to work with the data in the Vinci environment as opposed to downloading data. That would basically help you get around the issue of downloading large amounts of data and impacting the network bandwidth that is shared with all the other users. The communication with your assigned data manager always goes through the correspondence site, which is a SharePoint site, helps us keep track of everything. For all your data needs, please go through the correspondence site rather than emailing the help desk or just trying to emailing the data manager directly. This helps us, as I said, track all the requests and communication. A few last quick considerations. When it comes to responsibility as far as in terms of what you can and cannot do. In regards to a research project, keep in mind that the primary investigator is always responsible for how their research project is conducted and making sure that policies and guidelines are followed. One of the other requests I guess that we have for you is, if you do use the Vinci environment, you probably should please consider Vinci a citation in your publication, and the information is provided here. We do ask you to do that to help basically make sure that the research community knows that Vinci provides all these different great services that enables you to conduct and complete your research projects. That is the last of my slides. Now we have a little bit of time for questions and answers. One of the things I should mention here, for any of the questions that we are not able to answer or do not have time for today, or if other questions you may have later on, please feel free to email vinci@va.gov. And that gets routed to the proper individual in the Vinci team, and they will get back to you ASAP with answers and help you through your issues. Another quick reminder is, in addition to these cyber seminars that we often do, Vinci also has a Vinci dedicated call each month. It is known as the Vinci Happy Hour. It is on the third Wednesday of each month at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock noon Pacific, so we have one of those next week. The format of those is usually we do have a short presentation up to half an hour to help you get familiar with one of the specific areas in Vinci or a new piece of technology that we think you are interested in and like to know more about. The rest of the time, the remainder of that hour, we spend answering any questions that the users have, help you through any issues that you may have. Next week we have one of those, and next week's call will be hosted by Ogi Toronto, PHR Vinci IT Director. I invite you to attend that call and bring any questions that you may have, so take advantage of that if you can. With that, I will stop and open it up to questions. Moderator, fantastic, we do have a few pending questions here. For the audience, please take this opportunity, type questions into the question box and go to webinar. The first question we have here: for chart review services, what kind of people are on that team? Is it clinicians? Hamid Sayudayan, we do have a combination of data experts and people with clinical background. Also, I believe the team is able to tap into other resources if necessary. If you want to speak with that group directly or ask questions of that group about the type of service that you may need, feel free to send an email to vinci@va.gov and specify that you are looking for that type or service or that type of help. That team or a member of that team will contact you. Moderator, great, thank you. The next question's here: is there any chance Vinci can retain SPSS? If not, is there an alternative software you would recommend? Hamid Sayudayan, at this point I guess our recommendation is, if you can at all, if it is at all possible, move to SAS. That is basically the most popular tool, analytical tool in Vinci. At the same time, keep in mind that, as I mentioned, in SPSS, will still be supported as long as Vinci is allowed to continue basically keeping and using the same old copy of SPSS. Those are some of the things to keep in mind. If you need help transitioning to another one of the tools, contact us and we will provide you the staff time and help to help you get started through that process. Moderator, great, thank you. The next question here: how do we access the Linux workspace? Hamid Sayudayan, okay, the Linux workspace, if you are using it for example a SAS Grid environment, you are already using the Linux environment that SAS Grid runs on Linux. If you have a special need for Linux, usually it is in the form of requesting a development workspace, and at that point you would be assigned a Linux VM for your dedicated use. Send a request to vinci@va.gov and we can help you with that. Moderator, great, thank you. The next question: is Atlas TI available on Vinci? Or what program should we use to analyze TU notes and data? Hamid Sayudian, I will have to check on that. We do have a library of other software applications that you can install if you do have access to a development workspace. I am not sure about the Atlas. But in terms of working with TU Notes, we do have the data stored in SQL Server database. We have the data indexed to using the full text indexing in SQL Server. So you are able to use the full text index search in SQL Server to basically search for terms and so forth. In the TU Notes in the near future we are working on having a few new offerings, some custom applications perhaps to help you search through the notes easier. As I mentioned before, we do have the NLP team in Vinci that is ready to help you with any custom NLP work or work that you want to do with the TU Notes. Those are some of the tools available right now. Moderator, great, thank you. The next question here, do we need IRB permission to specifically request for OMOP data or do we just need IRB permission to request for data on Vinci? Hamid Sayudian, I guess the IRB basically specifies the type of data you need, the extent of data that you need, and then you go through the DART process for a research project, request the data. So OMOP data is now one of the options that you can select when you go through the DART process. If you want to access OMOP data you can request it when you do request the different data sources in your DART application. Keeping in mind that OMOP is basically a derived dataset from the CDW and some of the other datasets. Even though it uses a different data model and is a more summarized abbreviated dataset, it is still basically a derived dataset from the rest of the datasets. There is nothing in OMOP that is not already in datasets. But if you have a need for it you request it through the DART process. Moderator, great, thank you. The next question here, how do we obtain data dictionaries for a given domain? Hamid Sayudian, the CDW team offers a set of documents to help you with the data dictionaries or basically a set of diagrams as well, diagrams that you can use to get more familiar with the different datasets and different columns and different tables. Both through Vinci and also hopefully in the near future with the OMOP Odyssey tools we will be offering basically easy to use online applications that you can use to search through basically metadata and get familiar with the datasets. The structure of the data, the makeup of all the different datasets in Vinci. Moderator, great, thank you. We are just at the top of the hour here, but I am going to try to sneak one last question in here. Will you ever put back the analytic procedures onto the desktop SAS? They were on the old workspace but are no longer there without going to another server. Hamid Sayudian, that would be a good question for our SAS team. Whoever asked that question, please send us an email to vinci@va.gov and we will direct that to our SAS team and see if there is a way to provide you the access you need to those procedures. I am sure it can be done, so please go ahead and send that email request and we will get you set up with that access. Moderator, great, thank you. We do have a few pending questions out here for those of you that we did not get to your questions as we said earlier. Please just send those into vinci@va.gov and we will get answers out to you. I apologize, we do have a limited amount of time for these sessions but we try to get through as much as we can. Hamid, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to jump in for Tim and prepare and present for today's session. We really do appreciate you helping out today. For the audience, I am going to close the session out in just a minute and when I do you will be prompted with a feedback form. Please take a few moments to fill that out. We really do read through and try to implement as much feedback as we can. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's HSR&D Cyber Seminar, and we look forward to seeing you at a future session. Thank you.